iDS Talks is a podcast dedicated to helping corporations and law firms find new and effective ways to leverage data, giving them a decisive advantage both in and out of the courtroom.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of iDS Talks. My name is Jonathan Sachs, Chief Revenue Officer at iDS, and today I'm joined by Drew Gaibler to talk about AI in eDiscovery. Is it a game changer for legal professionals? Drew is iDS's Director of Discovery Services. Drew, welcome to the iDS Talks podcast.
Thanks, Jonathan. Great to be here.
Now, you are actually a newer member to the iDS team. Probably had one of the shortest I'm the new guy experiences before we had the next new person join. But for our listeners, why don't we start with you sharing a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I have been working in legal technology for the last 15 years. I was a managing director in a data and technology practice, and I focused on eDiscovery and analytics.
Love it, and thrilled that you joined. You've joined this team. So today we're talking about AI, and AI seems to be the buzzword for 2024 in the legal industry, and for that matter, others as well. I think you've heard me say this, Drew, in conversations. But when my dad talks to me about AI, I know that the word has gotten out there, and perhaps we're in trouble. But let's focus today's conversation on AI in the context of the legal industry. And let me start with this very first question. Is AI truly new to this space?
No, AI is not new to legal technology. It's not new to eDiscovery. It outdates me in the industry. There's been things like clustering, concept searching, and early TAR workflows. And so for those that don't know, TAR is technology assisted review. That's where it uses machine learning to predict how documents will be coded based on how documents in a training set were classified. Those early models they're much more sophisticated now than those early models, but we really wouldn't be where we are today without those.
Yeah, I think back 7-8 years. We're not going to tell the listeners how long either of us has been in this space, but I think we both started when we were 2.
Yep.
But yeah, I remember 8 years ago, approximately, when TAR 1.0 and 2.0 then followed on, and the conversation was, are the lawyers going to lose their jobs? Are the robots taking over the world of legal? And we found out 8 years ago that the answer was no. And so I think that naturally leads to the question of, with this round of AI, are lawyers going to lose their job, Drew?
Are lawyers going to lose their job? Well, I know that the landscape of how lawyers are going to be doing their jobs is going to significantly change.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the tasks that lawyers used to perform, they're already not doing those because they're automating some of those tasks, and it's going to continue to evolve. That is an opportunity for them to be able to focus on higher value tasks. And like I said, lawyers aren't going anywhere. AI is not going anywhere. Lawyers need to learn to adapt to AI and really evolve with it, and use it to their advantage to make their lives easier.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how today's lawyers can evolve and how AI can be leveraged by lawyers in eDiscovery.
Yes. So lawyers, like we said, do need to adapt. I'd say that it's important for them to be open-minded. They need to be willing to change and evolve with the changing landscape. And like I said, use it to your advantage. It's making these processes more able to get through these processes faster, more efficiently, and in a more cost-effective manner. Those teams that aren't utilizing AI, they're not going to be able to compete with the firms that are all in, or at least getting their toes wet right now.
Yeah. So before I ask you to share some ways that perhaps lawyers and law firms can be using AI to their advantage, let's just give this cautionary note to our listeners or viewers, because this isn't just a podcast. We also have our iDS talks, or a YouTube channel, but shameless plug. Let's though give a bit of a warning. So iDS does not dispense legal advice. So this is a best practice. Recently, there was yet another article out there about a lawyer and a pro se litigant who used AI to create their legal documents, briefs, and other submissions to the court. And there were case citations, and the case citations were not real. So before we talk about how they can use it, and with this cautionary note, Drew, can you share a bit about AI hallucinations?
Yes. So different generative AI tools like chatbots, they are able to perform different tasks that are really helping lawyers and professionals simplify their workflows. Um, some of the tasks that they can do are, like you mentioned, are drafting these different legal documents, legal briefs, but they are trained on different case law, historic case data, court outcomes, and based on that data, they can predict the outcome of the case that they're working on if they just provided simple facts of the case or detailed facts of the case. If you provide details that don't exist in the database, if a model has the ability to hallucinate, then it can just make something up if it can't find it. So hallucinating is if the training set is incomplete or biased, then when the model is learning different patterns about the data, then the data can in turn make incorrect predictions. So in some cases, it's obvious that the data that it's making up or hallucinating is fake. In other cases, it's pretty much impossible because it looks just like any other real data.
Yeah. And so not only will the citation be a hallucination, but the rule it stands for, the principle it stands for, the support that it gives to the legal argument could also be made up. And one of the articles I read recently, Drew, it involved a pro se litigant who relied on it, and I think the court felt bad, but said, it kind of was obvious when it said John Smith versus ABC Corporation. In the end, though, the appeal had been filed, and the court found that there was no basis for the appeal, and there was, I think, something like $10,000 that were levied against the pro se litigant filing the pleadings. And in the other was a Massachusetts judge, a Massachusetts case where a senior attorney, submitted 4 documents with the court, relied on an associate and I think 2 other law clerks perhaps who had not been admitted yet. And the judge basically wanted to understand what the heck happened. And the senior lawyer said, admitted, I read the brief for grammar, for flow, for persuasion, but did not go through and validate or confirm the citations, relied on the juniors. The court appreciated his honesty and candor and said, I still think that you did bad, so I've got to sanction you, and it was $2,000. So I think the lesson here is understand, is the system restricted to not hallucinate?
And validate. You need to validate your data. It's your work product. You're stamping your name on it, and yeah, these are popping up all over the place. So.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so hallucinations in writing case documents, like briefs, affidavits, things like that, is one way that AI can be leveraged by lawyers in eDiscovery. Are there other ways that they can be leveraging AI, say from help me determine a strategy, a best approach to take, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, those depending on what model you're using and if that model has been trained on law data or case law, outcomes of other cases, you can input the facts of your case, and it can come up with case strategies going into your litigation, and you can do that really with minimum effort and come up with a strategy either early on in a case, or if you hit a roadblock, and prompt it to tell you how it would how it would handle it, or how other historic cases have handled those similar types of issues.
Yeah. And we touched on this a little bit. I think you referred to the chat bots. So are we seeing some companies, some providers, some law firms using AI to essentially query a data set, a document, a group of documents, or data and documents to answer a question? Did someone do X, or what happened on this date? Is the AI technology able to give back answers from that specific data set?
Yeah, I mean, it's if the training data or the model is trained on the data that you're looking for an answer from, it can absolutely go in and train the data. And I mean, this goes back to, I mean, if you're using just a standard tool that off on the market, you're not going to want to enter specific case data or have it train that model on your data. But if you're using something that is private to you, that that the company that has built the model isn't collecting that data and keeping that data, then you can upload your data into that system. You can have it help you find really anything going into these into different cases.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So another article I read a while ago, and I think a number of our listeners may be aware of, a major tech company had someone put their code into ChatGPT to basically
Yep.
say, are there any errors with this code? When you do that, they basically gave their company code, the secret recipe, to ChatGPT, to the world. It became part of its learning set. And so I think your comment about the training being done on a specific data set is particularly important to the lawyers that are out there, so that they can understand what are they putting out into the public, what aren't they, and the limitations of some of these systems, or the risks with them. So let
And
me ask. Oh,
even the tools that or that tell you that your data is safe, you want to make sure to do your own due diligence and confirm, because the data that we deal with obviously is very precious, and we
yeah.
don't want you don't want it getting out, or it's big trouble for you and everyone involved.
Yeah, that's exactly a great point. How do you claw something back when you've now released it to the internet?
Right.
Little harder than calling your adversary and saying, sorry, we inadvertently produced. Can you give it back?
Yeah.
All right. So then I think I have two questions left for you.
Okay.
The first, and we've kind of touched on this, but I guess if you had to narrow it down to just a couple of points, what advice would you give to a lawyer considering the use of AI?
I would, if I was giving advice, I would say that you really want to pinpoint what problem you're trying to solve. Um, there's a lot of tools out there. There's going to be a lot more coming out. Different tools work better for different use cases. It's not one AI tool fits all solutions. So you want to make sure that you don't invest in a tool that doesn't solve your biggest problems. You also want to make sure that you understand the capabilities, the risks, and the limitations of the tools that you're going to be investing in, and really other tools that are out there on the market. You want to understand the ethical implications of the tool and AI in general. And you want to make sure that when you do roll it out, like any technology, you are doing it in a responsible way, that you are properly trained, and that you understand the tool, and then you should be good to go.
I think that's great. Well said, well put. For our listeners, I hope you wrote some of that down. Otherwise, go back on this recording by about a minute and write it down. Okay, so the last question is, and I've got to ask it because it's in the title of our podcast. Is AI really a game changer, Drew?
Yes, AI is a game changer. If you couldn't tell from some of the points that I've been making, these tools can make our workflows faster, more accurate, more efficient, more cost effective. If you're not using them, you will fall behind. Some of these tools like generative AI are new to the scene. They're already making a huge impact. And so we've only really scratched the surface of AI and where it's going in this space. So get on the AI revolution.
Yeah. AI is not replacing lawyering. It's just going to improve lawyering. Something along those lines. We'll work on the catchphrase for AI.
Yeah.
It's not yet trademarked. Well, I want to thank Drew for joining us today, as well as our regular subscribers and those that may be first-time listeners. If you'd like to learn more about IDS or subscribe to our IDS Talks podcast, you can visit idsinc.com or wherever you normally get your podcasts from. Thank you again for joining us, and I look forward to talking more about data with you on our next edition of IDS Talks.